Good afternoon. It's a pleasure, privilege to be with you and Early Years Wales in Child Safety Week. And this is, well, I forget how many Child Safety Weeks we've had from the Child Accident Prevention Trust, but it's been running for some time. It's always an important opportunity to share both what we do, but also to hear from people around the country, around the UK, about what's going on, and really just to provide a springboard and a launch pad for things that can happen in every local area to keep children safe. So what I'm just going to do in the next few minutes is just to run through a little bit of background. Some of you may know this already, know it very well, but just a bit of background about the Child Accident Prevention Trust, about what we do and why, about some of the key issues that we're aware of, and you may well be aware of yourselves, about children's safety, particularly for the children who spend most of the time, a lot of their time in the home in the early years, and also then about some of the things that we can do to support professionals and practitioners and basically anybody in the community who really cares about the safety of children and families. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. There's be some links in the presentation, but you can always go onto our website and get more information. So perhaps if I can have the next slide, please.
That moved on for you, Ian?
No.
No, it's not moving either.
Good. There you go.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Just a bit about Child Accident Prevention Trust, CAPT, it's easier to say that. We were set up about over 40 years ago by two paediatricians who were in the northeast of England, actually, but they were just sort of finding that they were continually seeing the same same injuries that children were coming into a hospital with, whether it was an A&E or being admitted for more serious cases. And they were just sort of coming to the conclusion that, you know, so much of this could be prevented and those children's lives could be improved, and obviously a lot of money could be saved from actually doing something about it. So they set up an initiative originally through the Royal College of Paediatricians and Child Health, and then we became an independent charity. And so now our vision is what you see on the screen, about helping children to lead active, healthy lives. We're not, and I emphasize not, about wrapping children in cotton wool or saying that they can't do things. There's nothing worse than this sort of excuse that sometimes is trotted out for health and safety things, sometimes with good reason, but sometimes just to sort of say, you can't do that. And we don't want to take that attitude. We believe that children should be able to do all sorts of things and to understand risk, but not at the expense of being hurt, disabled, or in the worst case, even killed in something which could so easily have been prevented. So next slide, please. I mean, Child Safety Week, I think it's fair to say Child Safety Week is, we would like to sort of think of it as a celebration as much as anything else, because through the really good work and of parents and child carers, child minders, grandparents, who do their very best to ensure that children in their care are safe, children very often are safe. And we want to celebrate that, and I think it's great that we can do that. When it comes to people saying to us, well, how can you prove that what you do works? Well, the reality is that you can't prove an accident that didn't happen. When we do training, one of the first things we do is to sort of just share introductions and see where people come from. And very often, one of the things that comes out is the number of near misses that all of us have, in terms of accidents. It's we just about avoid something which could become serious, either because of timing or good luck or something else. I'm now the happy grandparent of two young girls, 4 years and 9 months. And even though I'm supposed to be in the business, as it were, it's been a learning experience for me as to what children can do and how quickly they can do it. and how they can do it without anybody appearing to notice. So, we understand the reality of this, but, we want to stop those nightmares if we can. So next slide. I have to probably apologise that these figures are sort of based on England. I will talk about Wales in a minute, but we don't have the same numbers, same information about injury hospital admissions, which is essentially the measure that we use, because a hospital admission suggests that an injury has probably been more serious. So, that's not to say that visits to A&E or anyone else aren't serious. It's just that the admission suggests that there's something serious happened. So these are for England. They are probably quite representative in proportion for the population. So don't ignore them just because it says England. And the headline, of course, is the fact that on average 55 children under the age of 5 die each year due to unintentional injury. And of course, that's 55 too many. And that's a number that's a lot less than it was, when our charity was founded. But that's not to say that we should be complacent or think that that's somehow the norm, and that we should accept that. We should be working to prevent any death to a child for whatever cause, but in particularly from a preventable accident. There are approximately 40,000 emergency hospital admissions. That's a huge number. An even bigger number is the number of visits to A&E departments. And as I said before, how many near misses where something was just avoided? It's interesting that last year, I'm not quite sure where you got to with 20-mile-an-hour zones in Wales, but last year, before the introduction of the 20-mile-an-hour limit, Dr. David Hanna, who's a consultant paediatrician in the University Hospital Wales, talked about road traffic accidents being the largest cause of serious injury in children, typically walking or cycling. So that suggests an older age group. That suggests, sort of obviously children who may be going to school or sort of out and about. But, it just goes to show me that it's not even just the home, although the home is, certainly where the harm is in many respects. The next slide, please. So some information from Wales, and again, this sort of, it's typical of data and numbers in this subject, because we kind of jump around from different places, different timescales, simply because that's the only way we can get it. It's very hard to get accurate information, partly because the numbers involved are relatively small, which is a good thing in one sense, but it means that you then hit the confidentiality issues, which obviously we respect, but it means that we don't have information easily supplied. There are systems in England to some extent to capture this in hospitals, but it varies around the country. But anyway, so a review was done in Wales, the child analysis of the child death review program, that's a good way of finding that information. Some sort of wide spread of years, but still saying that 115 trauma and non-intentional injury deaths in this period, but there's no age breakdown. But it's 6% of all child deaths, so it's still very significant. And as I've suggested, the most common causes include transport-related accidents, so that, as I said, suggests a wider age spread. But then drowning, poisoning, fire and burns, threats to breathing, and other causes. And then you can get some more information if you want to pursue this through other sources like the All Wales Injury Surveillance System and the Burns Information provision. But otherwise, you really do have to drill down into other sorts of data. When it comes to things like fires, I think the UK nationally has fire statistics which give you quite a lot of detail. But I think generally you probably know what's going on within the community, and it's probably good to just be aware of information that you get from colleagues in health, like paediatricians, like GPs, like anybody in community health visitors, and people working Flying Start, or the people who are actually in contact with families. Next slide. So we always say it's important to understand why and how, as well as how accidents happen. If you go on the figures I was using before, something like 80% of injuries to under fives are in the home, but obviously, as I've said, roads still kill. The 5 major causes appear to be falls, burns, poisoning, drowning, threats to breathing. And very often, as I'm sure you know, and many parents will know, it's because children are just doing what children do. You know, they're growing, they're moving, they're doing all the things that instinctively children do without anybody else kind of programming them to do it. A young child will instinctively put things in their mouths. And of course, you can see where that could lead if things are not supervised. And the classic comment that we hear, and I'm sure you hear, and many of you probably will say it, is, well, I didn't know they could do that. And I think that's one of the things where you have to be, as we often say, be one step ahead. And that's not easy because, you know, for all parents and for all carers, you know, we don't have eyes in the back of our heads. We have to just rely on supervision, good safety routines, and things like safety equipment, which I'll mention a bit later. But that's really the picture, very, very headline way of looking at the picture in terms of what hurts and kills children. Next slide. What is particularly concerning, I mean, if that wasn't concerning enough, which it is, but what is particularly concerning is that this is such a glaring health inequality. I mean, the sad and tragic and absolute, to be honest, you know, completely wrong fact is that poorer children have more accidents and are more likely to be killed and injured. So under fives, again, this is going from the data that I had before, but emergency hospital admissions, 38% higher for the most deprived children. That's a huge difference. And children from overcrowded homes, 3 times more likely to be injured. And that's, again, that's, you know, really something that shouldn't be acceptable. We're in a period of leading up to a general election. There'll be a lot of claims and a lot of things said about a lot of things. But I would say, well, personally, I would say that, you know, the health action to address health inequalities and child poverty, you know, should be really up there with the key issues. Next slide. And when it comes to understanding that a little bit more, the environment that children are growing up in, as I'm sure you all know very well, and you know, if you're working in the front line or if you're caring or doing anything involving children, you'll know this from your own experience. But parenting can mean pressure. I mean, parenting almost certainly does mean pressure in different ways, and different, you know, not everybody's able to deal with that in the same way. You know, but the most recent figures that I've seen come from something called Children at the Table from last November, talking about 4.2 million children in the UK growing up in poverty. I mean, that's just horrendous. And 1 million children living in extreme poverty, and 1 in 12 parents have a child who has to share a bed with them or a sibling. I mean, when you think that we're in 2024, you know, you think that was instead of 1824. This is just not, shouldn't be acceptable. It's something, you know, these are bigger issues than all of us can deal with individually. But I think we have to do what we can to, first of all, to spread the word and to make sure that those that we're in contact with are given the support they need and the information they need, and that we're there for them. But we, you know, for all new parents, there's the natural anxiety wanting to do the right thing. And we don't want to add to postnatal anxiety, which is a real factor for many people. But we do want to feel, for parents to feel supported in bringing up their children safely. Next slide. So it's the home environment, the thing that the one place where you're not going to see signs that say this is a fire escape, and you're not going to see other things which have a regulation. I mean, many of the things that we bring into the home should be protected and have safety regulations around them. But the home itself is completely unregulated, and Really it's up to the family to make as best they can. When families are, as I've said, under pressure, living in crisis, it's not just a cost of living crisis, it becomes a cost of surviving in some cases, and that's not exaggerating. The whole issue of overcrowding, temporary accommodation and homelessness, which I'm sure must be an issue in many communities in Wales, um, is something which is going to be a real problem. And there's some figures which are from UK wide, but you'll each know what's going on in your area. And even with the best will in the world, and we believe the overwhelming majority of parents want the best for their children. We're not talking about deliberate neglect. I mean, that is there, and that is a different issue. But often it's just about these things that people are having to deal with: being a lone parent, lack of family support, being a young or inexperienced parent, not having a community base where information can be shared or help can be shared, maybe not aware of safety equipment. We know that, in many cases, the gold standard in accident prevention is to have the right safety equipment at the right time. But sometimes that comes with cost. A car seat, safety gates, those sort of things, window locks have a cost. And for some, that may be difficult. And we know that too many shortcuts are probably made. Next slide, please. So we probably might think or like to take comfort from the fact that some accidents don't happen anymore, that we're in a safer society, and that can be true about some things. And as I said, the figures that I gave you at the beginning suggest a better picture or an improving picture. But all the same, we've still got emerging issues. We've got everyday consumer products coming into the home which are not safe. And people, quite understandably, we all understandably think, well, if I can buy it, it must be safe. Well, that's just not always true. Certainly in England, the Office for Product Safety and Standards, which I think has a UK remit, issues recall notices about unsafe products. And in the last 2 years, over 100 products which were recalled had baby in the title, which is a pretty shocking figure. We know that online marketplaces can be unsafe, and then you have things that are so common now in products about like button batteries and magnets, and that's in addition to the other risks that you find around the home: the blind cords, nappy sacks, furniture which can fall, or people thinking they can do DIY and say, oh, we'll just put this new fireplace onto the wall, but the wall was never designed to have a stone fireplace, and the fixings are not strong enough, and then we wonder why it falls off the wall and causes injury or worse to children. So all these things are at risk. We do feel at CAPT that we are getting the message across. Sometimes we've now, through the work of the government department I mentioned, and through our own work, we've got alongside people like Amazon, and we've got information about button battery safety onto the Amazon product safety hub. So I mean that's a bit of a success, because they're such a big player and they're so important to online sales. That really is going to be significant. Next slide, please. Thank you. I mean, just as one example, the sort of things that you see now increasingly, new issues: e-scooters, e-bikes, anything with the E in it, which has a rechargeable battery. And we know from, I mean, this is an example from London Fire Brigade, but I wouldn't mind betting that South Wales and Mid and West Wales and North Wales Fire and Rescue Services have come across these issues with batteries being recharged in the home and then catching fire, and then there's a fire in the home. So that's just, it's just one example of the challenges. Next slide. Just needing to sort of rush through this now a little bit, but just the sort of things that we can do and what's so important. So again, in the NHS, it's quite common to talk about making every contact count. It's quite a familiar expression in terms for lots of different health issues, but we think that's really important for accident prevention as well, engaging with families and communities to help them to do what we're talking about, staying one step ahead of the dangers. And it can come down to just having the right conversation at the right time. It's not necessarily about having, shed loads of information or hours to go through and do a home safety check, ideal as that would be. It's about maybe having the right word at the right time and just to give ideas and encouragement, not to wag fingers, not to say, oh, you mustn't do that, you mustn't do that. It's about just giving that encouragement so that parents can say, when they've heard that, yeah, I get it, but not that I'm being got at, because there's nothing worse and more likely, parents more likely to switch off if they feel they're being got at. And it's just highlighting the sort of safety priorities maybe we all need to be reminded of. As I said earlier to colleagues, as a newish grandfather, I'm kind of learning it all again, and I think that's something that we all have to do. Next slide. So we try to, in giving those priorities, we talked about the home safety checklist and be consistent, have a consistent approach to risk reduction and go by the evidence that is out there. There's plenty of information and evidence out there. Next slide. So how we try and support everybody really, but I mean certainly frontline practitioners and professionals, we want to provide what we see as the evidence that, and the support to help to support families to make their homes safer, very often from quite simple changes to routines, simple changes to their surroundings. And the information you'll find on our website, much of which is downloadable and free, although we do have, as a charity, we do sell stuff as well, but there's so much there, and we do urge you to sign up and you'll get news about things that are happening and resources that we can share with you. Next slide. We've recently sort of compiled some resource hubs, so just to make it easier to find that information. And you'll find on all the topics that are listed there a lot of information which is hopefully accessible. It's not just sort of masses of small print. It's about providing the sort of the action points that people can take and that you can enable you to do something to support other people. And many of these are everyday situations, whether it's a hot drink or safety around pets or keeping medicines out of the way. These are the sort of everyday things that we all do, and we all need to be perhaps that bit safer in how we approach them. And the more we can do to encourage each other to do that, the more we can help you to pass on that information, then the better it's going to be. Next slide, please. And finally, really, it's not, you're not on your own. I mean, we're here to sort of provide help and information, but in most communities, there will be other people who actually are quite able to, we know everybody's under pressure and time and money and all the rest of it, but all the people I've listed there, can be really important allies and contacts in the community. And not just the obvious ones. I mean, you would expect fire and police and road safety and so on to be there for you. But when it comes to things like the voluntary and community sector, the food banks, I volunteered for a food bank, and I know that at Christmas time, it's really important, not just to provide the food, but when toys come in and when there's a toy bank or something like that, to check out the toys to make sure they're safe and that the battery compartments are closed and all that sort of thing. So there are opportunities to make a difference wherever you are and whatever you're doing. Next slide. So that's really it in just a quick whistle through, but please do look onto our website and see how we can help you. If you've got particular questions on particular safety issues, then just email us, safe@CAPT, and we'll try and provide some answers. We don't give product endorsements. If you're thinking about safe sleeping for a child, particularly a very young baby, then the Lullaby Trust is a great place to go, and they have a lot of very good resources about safe sleeping. So I encourage you to go to them. But we will do what we can to help. And we wish you well, and we wish you and all the families that you work with well, and we really hope that the children in Wales will continue to benefit from your support, your interest, your commitment. And it's great that you've been able to listen to and share this. Jock and Val, thank you, and good luck. Thank you.